Hey guys, I
All
think we're
right.
live.
We did it.
Made
Hey, I
it.
had to put I had to put the graphic up for just a minute. So welcome everybody to the Not Your Average Financial Podcast live. We have some incredible guys, um, collaborators in the revolution here, and it's great to see you guys again this week. What's going down, Mr. Evan? I'll let you go first, sir. What's the latest in your world, and what's keeping your gears turning this week?
Well, I got to attend a conference with Security Mutual just this week in Philadelphia and got to learn a whole bunch about underwriting and all the fun stuff involved
They,
with that.
they, I heard they
So,
called it thunder writing.
underwriting, yeah, because it makes a boom, I guess. But no, it's pretty incredible. Their ability, Security Mutual is very good at getting people through the pipeline as far as getting the medical stuff, everything that they can do on their part. It's absolutely clear. Like they're running a well-oiled machine, and they got some pretty big updates that are coming out later this year and at the beginning of next year, and for various policies, it's going to be fun stuff. So yeah, got to learn a whole bunch.
Nice.
So meet with all the team over there who are stellar people, by the way. So
Nice.
yeah, that's kind of what's got my gears turning lately. But that, along with qualified retirement accounts, of course.
Which is what we're talking about now, the 401k disaster that's going on. That's what we're going to be covering. But first, Mr. Brandon, check in, sir. How you doing?
Oh, good. I think today has been back-to-back meetings. One of the fun things about what we do is as there's a lot of people giving advice out there, and
Mhm.
a lot of them don't have licenses. And every year, every 2 years, we have to do CE, continuing education, to be able to tell people things. So I spent this morning doing CE work. And so there's, again, as people are on YouTube doing all kinds of stuff, saying things, a lot of them don't have licenses. We do, all of us here, and we have to prove it. So anyway, that was my morning. Uh,
Good
continuing
times.
education.
So, with the boring stuff that we all do, so the listeners don't have to, I want to lay the groundwork for something that I think will matter to just about every American and probably beyond, because these qualified retirement plans that have been made popular by the 401k and IRA are starting to show cracks. They're starting to show weaknesses, and it's because they were built on a false premise. That's going to be my bold hot take. We want to hear your hot takes, so make sure as you're listening that you let us know what you think about what we're saying right now. If you have a comment or question, put it in the chat below, and we'll make sure to watch for that and write about it and talk about it live. But we're talking about the impressive statistic that Brandon found recently in his research, and that is that there are a record number of 401k hardship withdrawals. They're at a record high, actually. 6% of participants, of all 401k participants. So think of it, there's tens of million, maybe 100 million 401ks in this country. I have no idea, maybe 50 million, maybe something like that. With 6%, we're talking about millions of people who had to take not a regular retirement withdrawal, but a hardship withdrawal. So somebody, anybody, speak up. What in the heck is a hardship withdrawal? And tell us what that means to have record numbers of people pulling hardship withdrawals.
Brandon?
Well, what it tells me is probably they weren't 60 yet. So there's people that have put into there and they need money. A hardship means hardship, like literally they don't have money for
It's in the
rent.
name, yeah.
Yeah. And so they're taking money from future you, what they were planning for retirement, to live, to buy milk, to do the things that they need, maybe a car, maybe other things. And so they may have lost the jobs. I think when I spoke last week, how many jobs lost? 92,000 last
Like
month or something like that.
92,000, yeah. Mhm.
Um,
Pretty sure I saw that.
so that's 92,000 that had a check the week before, but now don't. And so now what they've been saving into, I don't know, their future retirement, and they're having to use it for rent or whatever right now. That's what that tells me.
Mm-hmm. Which is not any real difference. There's not a tremendous amount of difference between that and being able to take out like a policy loan in a time of need, a hardship policy loan. They just don't call it that with
Yeah,
bank
yeah.
There are a lot of differences in how that actually functions and plays out.
So we're looking at the highest recorded hardship withdrawal percentage ever, triple what it was before the 2020 COVID pandemic. And I really think that this signals a failure of not the people, because they're going through the hard times, but the products that were given to those people. It's sort of like if I'm drowning and you hand me, a dumbbell. That's a failure, one of the guy handing me the dumbbell, but two, of the dumbbell being the wrong tool. Hand me something like a flotation device, not something that's going to sink me under the waves. So I think it signals, I think, too, an erosion of personal financial agency. When more and more people decided, you know what, I'm going to chase that higher rate of return, and I'm going to outsource my agency to the stock market or the money manager or the government for deferring my taxes into a future that I can't control. And now we're in a world that many Americans can't control, and now they're being forced to draw on funds before they were legally allowed to. It's funny, the government thinks you're not old enough to get access to your own money until you're 59 and a half years old. That's preposterous. I think I could drive a car when I was 16. I could buy alcohol or whatever when I'm 21, and I got to wait till 59 and a half to get access to my own money without a penalty. And most people don't realize that, but a 401k will penalize you if you get access to your money before 59 and a half years old. And the problem is more people need money before they're 59 and a half. Go figure, right? Life is going to throw us a curveball probably multiple times between your age today and age 59 and a half. So I think it's a failure of the product, the 401k. Anybody chime in here. What is the history of the 401k? Does anybody have any parameters on where this thing even came from and how we got here?
So I will say that because I've been doing my CE work.
All right.
And thinking about the ERISA thing in 1974. All these changes happened in just about when I was born, right? 1977 is my birthday. And all of these shifts happened where instead of doing pensions, savings, everybody was an investor, right? And then this little tax code in there, 401k, Ted Benna found it, and it was meant really to add to the pension, not to replace it. But as a business owner, hey, if I can use this little tool to make it easier for me, take the risk from my employees, or me having to pay my employees onto them, then I'm going to do that as a business owner. And so it got adopted in 1974. People became investors. The market went up like a lot, and it is. So a lot of people are saying, hey, wait a second. Wall Street is up 50,000 points or whatever the heck that means. Shouldn't I be rich? But it's not happening. And so people are like taking hardships, but they're like, yeah, but the market's up. So I'm wondering where it's all going to end. But this experiment since 1974 is now coming to fruition to the baby boomers, and how'd that work out? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. It's an interesting tool that has given the wealthy a chance to really participate in the market. But it was 1970, in the mid 70s, when the ERISA Act passed, and made the IRA and the 401k legal and possible. I think a lot of people don't realize that the 401k wasn't created on the seventh day of creation or the sixth day of creation. It was relatively recent. It's so recent that if 401k was a person, it would not even be old enough to itself retire. And it wouldn't be able to access its own money. Yeah. You have to be
I would be
59
penalized.
and a half. You'd be penalized. And that's where these hardship withdrawals come in. They realize, oh, wow, the government thinks I'm not old enough to handle my own money. So I got to pull a hardship withdrawal. Hey, while I'm rambling, would somebody go to the IRS website or just some website and find what is the rules around the hardship withdrawals? What are my options for taking a hardship withdrawal? And what are the opportunities there and that sort of thing? Just look up what are my what options do I have if I need to take a hardship withdrawal from my 401k? While you're doing that, Evan? Sure.
I was going to say, like, just based off what I can remember, hardship withdrawal is typically going to, I know they allow you, I don't know if it's called a hardship rule, requirement, if they needed a loan, a withdrawal for up to $30,000 for like a first time home buyer type situation. I know if you're ever needing it to pay for like medical related type things, sometimes you can get a hardship there, or if there is like some sort of disability for like a child or something along those lines. Those are some of the examples of like a hardship withdrawal, things like that.
Yep, there's probably a list on here somewhere where you can really dig into it and find out for sure if you qualify or not. But the key is
covering
generally
medical expenses, primary residence, not investment property, tuition for education, to prevent eviction or foreclosure, funeral expenses, and certain types of damage to repair primary home. Those are some of the main ones.
So they're not going to let you get access to your money unless you're buying a house, you lost your job, or you're dead, basically. Funeral expenses. Okay. So here's the big whopping Wall Street Journal, their recent chart, I think, says it all, and why we wanted to do this. It's just it's a uninterrupted compounding growth chart, isn't it? This is what your stock portfolio is supposed to look like. And yet Wall Street Journal shows it's people pulling more and more money out of their 401k. That looks like the beautiful chart your financial advisor should be showing you, right? That terrifies me as I look at this chart. What do you guys see when you look at this?
Unhealthiness is what I'm seeing. Is like, if that's increasing, that means those are people, not just a graph.
Yeah.
Right? These are people who, did the system. They pay their taxes. They're doing their best, and they're not making it.
Wish we could see what it looked like before 2020.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting to know.
Yep. So it's just hey, look at us. There we go. We're talking about it. So and there's our live. Wow. Okay. Good.
Wow.
So here you go. Here's 2018, 19, 20 went down. Now here's an interesting fact. Why would it have gone down in 20? I have some ideas for you guys, but what do you remember about what the government allowed folks to do in 2020?
I think I know. Something to do with like quantitative easing. There we go. QE and all that. So that's where the government prints out money and gives it to people as easing, to help out with hardships and stuff. So people didn't have to pull from their 401ks in 2020 as much.
Well, and then we were going through a crisis, right? And so we were getting checks in the mail. Wasn't everybody getting a check in the mail?
There was the check in the mail. Yep.
I don't know.
Everyone got the check. But what do you guys remember the word CARES Act? Do you guys remember this? The
I do.
CARES Act, it allowed for distributions from your 401k and IRA. A lot of people pulled money out of their 401k and IRA to fund their Bank on Yourself policy that year. So the CARES Act, we did a podcast on this way back in 2020 when it was happening. That's why there were fewer hardship withdrawals, I believe, in 2020, because they didn't call it that. But people were
Yeah.
still pulling from it. But they just didn't call it a hardship withdrawal.
That
Interesting
makes
stuff,
sense.
right? Yeah. So okay, so we have this I guess going on. Why should we care? And for those who maybe have a 401k but have not yet taken a hardship withdrawal, why should they care?
Well, Brandon, you mentioned it earlier. Like they're stealing from their future retirement. They're stealing from their future selves, and by spending the money now, the money that they've saved, they're going to have to save it again plus some in order to get back to even. So that's one reason.
It's a good one.
The other thing I think is happening, and what's really, a lot of people aren't becoming, they're not working for the man anymore. They're becoming self-employed, or they are 1099 employees, right? And so what do we do that's different? I think about that a lot. And people would tell me, and we used to have our policies, we still have our policies, but we had a hardship that happened that really made me step into this industry. This was when I had the coffee shop, and they call this black swan events that happen that are outside of your control, that affect your, I don't know, your own local economy, right? So, so we had a flood in the business, and this flood, stopped everything, stopped production of all this stuff, and we literally had a hardship. Now we were going to get our not life insurance, but the insurance was going to cover it, but it was going to take a couple months to get it. We immediately took a loan from our policies. Now, if I would have had a 401k, I would have taken a hardship loan or something to get the money out, right, at a higher interest rate, and been double taxed. But I was able to use that policy to overcome my flood, right, and to be able to then sell the business and not close the business. We had a hardship. So oftentimes people don't see this. They're like, that's not going to happen to me. That's going to happen to somebody else, right? Until it happens to you, right? And so what I want to tell people is, if you're not experiencing a hardship yet, prepare for something to happen at some point, right? Hopefully not, but life happens, right? And so that's where I used my policies to overcome this. Now the story gets interesting in that people were like, why are you using a policy loan when the interest rates are at 2%? Or would I use a policy loan? This was in 2020, right? The same time interest rates were going down, 2022. And I told people back then, interest rates aren't going to be that low forever. It's going to change. What's happening now? Interest rates are way higher, right? So my thing is, use whatever's happening in the world, right, to your advantage. Maybe I can get a low interest loans back then, right?
Yeah, right.
But now the interest has changed. I could use this policy, if it's a life insurance policy, for either hardship or an opportunity, right? And no one's telling me, I'm not close to 60. And so thinking about how do we not become, a statistic, right? How do we use this to our advantage? And we are going to have more of these as black swan events. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up is, yes, we see this. We need to do something different.
There you go. Yeah. Let's talk about what else can be done. So, besides a 401k hardship withdrawal, you can take a 401k loan. right?
Mhm.
So before we leave the ecosystem of 401ks and talk about Bank on Yourself, which I think is the quintessential solution that we need to really make sure we spend plenty of time talking about, many Americans might look at the hardship withdrawal and say, well, hey, I need $50,000 for my emergency, and I'm limited to, what's the number? Is it $10,000 still? The hardship withdrawal, I believe, is limited to $10,000. You guys correct me if I'm wrong there. But many people's emergencies, that's going to be that's like maybe 2 months of living expenses, 3 months maybe if you're scratching. That used to be a lot of money, but they haven't adjusted that number for inflation, and we've had incredible amounts of inflation since that $10,000 number has been on the book. So
It might
now we're
pay
out
for
of
gas
hardship.
nowadays.
That
I
might pay
think.
for a gallon of gas. That's right.
Yeah.
So after I'm through my 10K, I've burned through that. What else can I do? My 401k can offer me a loan, right? A loan. Let me walk you guys through, and I know you guys know about this, but walking through loans. Loans are actually a big reason or big way people access money in their 401ks. And we put together a simple little chart for you when you're needing a 401k loan. We make it easy for you guys on Not Your Average Financial Podcast and the live here. So let me pull that up for you if I can briefly. It's only 13 steps, only 13 whole steps to getting a 401k loan. So no big deal, right? Let's see if I can pull this in. Download. Oh, well, that might be a second here. Have you guys ever talked to any of your clients about a 401k loan? Or if you're watching in the chat, have you ever taken a withdrawal or a 401k loan from your account? That's what I want to know.
Well, so as far as 401k loans, yes, I've had clients who have done that before, and not it has worked out. It has been helpful, and they've done it. I've had one guy even do it multiple times, but it feels very much more like a debt than compared to a policy loan that you've got to pay it, or else there's pretty harsh consequences if you don't. And if you even miss a payment, there's some pretty harsh consequences. And anyway, so it was a lot more stressful of a repayment process, and the limiting amount, the limits to the amount that you can actually access is challenging as well. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Seems
true.
like you were good at this.
So you're so right, man. So let me get this little bottom ticker off here. So looking at the chart on the left, here's a 13-step 401k obstacle course, which I'm not going to read to you word for word, but you got to get the HR involved. You got to get your spouse's permission. Most people don't like to have to do all this. Asking permission for your own money is sort of counterintuitive. When you're in an emergency, if any of these people say no thanks, you may not get your loan. But 13% of 401k savers have an outstanding loan. That's according to a Vanguard study. And their How America Saves report, the same one that just came out recently in 2026. So some experts are saying that 401k loans should be your first choice. And I'm going to say it's the worst thing you could possibly do. So we got the hardship withdrawals, and then we got 401k loans. Here's the 13 easy steps, right? Get that 6-page application filled out. Talk to HR, ask the company for the money, and beg HR for a yes. Explain in detail why you need the money. Yuck. Do you want to tell your boss that? Select one of the mandatory repayment schedules. Have your spouse sign the permission form. Permission form. Feels like I'm in grade school doing all this. How about getting a notary public to notarize your spouse's signature? Sign a promissory note saying you promise to repay the loan. Have an irrevocable pledge and assignment of assets agreement against your 401k where they can just gobble it up if you don't pay it back. Send the application packet to the company. Hopefully it all gets there safely. The company loan committee will review your application. Yuck, this sounds like worse than a bank. If the committee decides to give you the loan, that's a big if, the company will send you a check in the mail. They'll also send you a payment schedule. A schedule of fees, and they'll tell you what the penalties will be if you don't make payments as agreed. And you could have the money in about 2 weeks if you do all those steps. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm already exhausted just reading all that. It's a good way to get a good workout, but not a good way to get your money, I think. So
That's
somebody, oh
that's
yeah, go
if
ahead.
you're vested, you know.
That's if you're vested. Yeah.
If you're not vested, you can only take out the vested amount.
Wow.
Um, Not to mention, how much can you take out? Do you know what the maximum is?
You can take $50,000 or half of your balance, whichever is less.
Whichever is less. And you know that is not super helpful, not a whole lot more helpful. It's going to get you a couple months further along, maybe, than like a $10,000 loan or
Right.
withdrawal, penalty free and all that. But geez, I mean,
Yep.
that's pretty rough. The maximum term to repay it's 5 years.
Yeah. No,
What if you need it longer? That's just going to be tough. So.
Evan, talk to us about what happens if you don't pay back a 401k loan on time.
Well, it can cause tax penalties. 10% tax penalty may be applied on the amount that you don't pay back. They like you said, kind of gobble it up, and they consider it as like a withdrawal, and so you're going to pay taxes on any gains that you have as well on the money that you take out. Um, Good thing is that you no longer have to make those loan payments, I suppose, but it's the whole idea of not stealing from your future self and repaying yourself and everything kind of goes out the window. You got to add that back in somehow, which catching up in a 401k is not as easy as just catching up in a regular bank account.
So if you don't, yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
I was going to say, I've seen a lot of people use the 401k loan because they want to have financial freedom. And so they think that, I'm a business owner, right? And so they're like, it's so much nicer on that side that I don't want to work for the man. I'm going to use my 401k loan to start a business. And they've never started a business before. And they realize that it takes sometimes more than a couple years to get the business profitable.
Right.
And so they're on the hook on two different sides then, because they were told 401k loan. They were told 401k, right? And then they got into it. They did all the things, and they have this big pot of money that they can't access till they're 60, and they want financial freedom. So then they, or some kind of freedom, and so they pull out of it, that big nest egg, to start their own empire, real estate empire or something. And it gets challenging. So I've seen
a lot of people think that it's the low
times.
cost way to borrow money, though. I mean, they say, hey, it's a way to get tax free money. You can borrow from your 401k and get that money out tax free. It's one of the lowest cost ways to borrow. Borrowing from a 401k is not a taxable event, so it doesn't even show up on your credit report. Is that true, or is there something more to the story, guys?
But you just got taxed twice, didn't you? Because you're gonna take it out,
you're gonna
pay it back, and then you're gonna take it out again at retirement. So that's two times.
So slow that down just a bit. Yeah, Evan, say some more about that. Brandon was kind of teasing that, but say some more about that.
The interest that you have to pay on the 401k is taxable as income, right? It's not
so that's just a little, yeah, but that might be just a little bit, depending. I mean, up to 50 grand, and the interest might be 5 to 7%. So you're right. There's a little bit there. But what else? There's Brandon brought it up. Brandon, do you want to go for that one, Brandon? Say that again. What you were saying about double taxation?
Well, you pulled it out, so then you're getting taxed on that as a distribution or whatever. But then if you pay it back and then you take it out at retirement, you're going to be taxed on that same money again.
Yep. Wow.
So
yeah.
you're taxed on that money twice, not just once. So then
the double taxation trap there on the left side of the screen. Yep.
Yeah, and if we're looking at rate of return and you're double taxed on that, doesn't that break your compounding like a lot?
Mm.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Does it keep growing as if you never pulled it out? No.
They do say that. That's one of the things that a lot of people say, well, hey, I can do bank on yourself with my 401k because it'll keep on growing. Now, what's the truth? The truth is they'll set your loaned amount, your collateralized 401k balance in a fixed account earning 1 to 2%, like a high yield savings inside your 401k. And then they'll charge you 5 to 8% or even higher, depending on the 401k that you're borrowing from. So to me, that spells negative arbitrage. You're earning 1 or 2% while you're being charged 5 to 7 or higher, 8 to 10%, depending on the 401k you're borrowing it from.
Mm-hmm.
So to me already, that spells negative arbitrage. But you guys just said, and the infographic says it right here, you're taxed twice. Once when you repay your 401k loan because it's coming out of your paycheck with after-tax dollars, and then twice, second time is in retirement when you pull that 50 grand out again to spend on the grandkids or the groceries that you need when you're 77 years old. So that's twice spent. That's, if you're charged a 30% bracket to repay the loan when you're 42 or 48 or whatever, and then another 30% when you're 66 years old and you're retired and you're pulling money out of the 401ks, 30 plus 30 that's not hard math. That's a 60% effective tax rate on something that you could have just had access to and for tax-free purposes in your bank on yourself designed policy. Okay, so now we've talked about the hardship withdrawals going sky high in this country for 401ks. We've talked about the problematic 401k loan. Somebody get behind the pulpit and bang on it for a while about why bank on yourself policy loans are infinitely better than a 401k loan or a 401k hardship withdrawal. Evan, I'm passing the ball to you and then pass it to Brandon.
Dang, man. Well, that's where to begin. So I'll use your graphic here, the zero red tape. As far as the whole strategy is concerned with bank on yourself, to access your policy cash value, it's as simple as making going on to your bank account, again, kind of comparing here and asking for a policy loan. Now, when you ask for a policy loan, can they say no? Can they deny your request? Are they going to check your credit score? None of that. No, that's called red tape. So the insurance company asks 2 questions. How much do you want? And where do you want us to put the money? And then they send it to you. And it's just like that. And you can use the money as you want. You can repay the money as you feel like you can. So if you skip payments for a month or for 6 months or for 2 or 3 years or something like that, it's not going to ding your credit score. You're not going to, run into sort of, any sort of issues where people are banging on your door telling you you better pay your loan or else. The only downside really that I see is that you're stealing from your future self if you don't repay it. The money that you do borrow out continues to compound and grow as if you never took it out on the full amount. And the simple interest that you're paying on the policy loan is typically going to be less than what your cash value is compounding. So it allows you to a little bit more flexibility on the repayment schedules, especially if you're, a good banker and, I call it a shrewd banker and a diligent borrower, and you pay back your loans on a regular basis if you borrow them out. So I'll pause there and let somebody else jump in.
Brandon, compare the two. How does it feel to take a 401k loan in your mind versus how does it feel to take a bank on yourself designed whole life policy loan?
Yeah. And again, I'm now speaking from a business owner perspective. I like financial freedom. I've had to take a loan for hardships, right, and had to use it. But then, again, I'm thinking about what I call the 10-10-10 savings rule, saving 20% for future me. And then I have a loan repayment. And Nelson Nash says, don't steal the peas from your own grocery store kind of idea. So hardships happen. Things happen in life, right? And so I still pay that back. So I used my policy that I used to overcome the flood, paid it back, and used that to buy a house, right? And the other thing that is powerful, whether it's we're looking at, oh, the rate of return, it grew by 30%. Well, you just said if it grew by 30% in Wall Street, but then we're taxed a whole lot more, did we really make any money? So
Sure, yeah.
the policies maybe look smaller, but it's compounding every year uninterrupted. Even if the money is in there, you're borrowing from the insurance company, and the insurance company, as you borrow it, it's still growing as if you never touched it. It's a non-direct recognition company. That's
Boom.
a big thing that people don't, that they miss. My money is growing as if it's in the policy, because it still is. And the insurance company is giving me a loan at a low interest, simple interest, not compounding. I'm not sure how the 401ks calculate their interest payments, but 5% simple interest annualized at the end matters, right? And so then we are able to then use that money again multiple times for not just with hardships, but for asset creation.
Totally, man.
I
That's
could keep
good.
going, but I more of this is your emergency fund. You can then use it in other ways to make more revenue.
Love it. Love it. What about anybody have any idea what happens if you lose your job with a 401k versus if you lose your job with a bank on yourself policy loan?
I think you're required to pay it all back or something pretty quick, or
within your next tax filing is actually the case. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and what happens if you don't? Well, there's the income tax on all the money due plus a 10% penalty for grabbing that money and not paying it back like you should have. And honestly, that's the worst time. The hardest time to repay a giant loan is if you lost your job. So that's the 401k reality. What about a policy?
That's what I'm concerned about more when I saw this post, and just thinking about, in 2022.
Yep.
Yeah, 92,000. Whenever 22 was happening or 2020 was happening, and we were giving all this money away, I was like, interest rates are gonna go up, and people were like, well, why did I put it into a policy? Interest rates are down. I'm like, because it's gonna go up. Guess what happened? Interest rates went up because of what happened in 2020.
Totally.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more worried about the repercussions that are happening now for these people who are going to be retiring. We only have 150,000 in a 401k anyway on average, right?
Right.
So that's 55-year-olds that lost their job that now is replaced with AI, maybe. Who knows? So how is that going to impact us? And so is there a better way? Absolutely. Put it into life insurance policies that are properly designed that you can use. And guess what? When the flood happened, for me, I didn't make a loan repayment for a while. I get to choose that.
So if you want to, you are in control of repaying that policy loan completely. What if you lost your job and you had a policy loan? Would they come repo your life insurance?
I mean, I tell at least pay the premium. Try and at least make sure you're not stealing from old you, right? And have a plan. But Vito's not going to come try and break your kneecaps. I tell my clients sometimes pretend like you are, so that way you're just as the banks are going to come after you and want their money. You should be that ruthless to yourself.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So maybe pretend that Uncle Guido's showing up at your door every night, but he won't actually, because you're the banker. You get to decide when you repay these loans.
The banker and the borrower. So, like I said, be a shrewd banker and a diligent borrower who always pays their loans back on time as much as possible. But don't sweat it if you can't, or if you need to take a month or so off or whatever, or even a year. Just pay the simple interest that accrues each year and it won't even compound ever. You're just never going to have any more of a loan amount than what you've got, paying simple interest. So that's a whole lot more doable than, getting a sharp poke in the eye from a 10% tax penalty if you happen to lose your job because of a layoff, or because you quit, or whatever. You're not trapped in a job that you hate just because you can't repay your 401k loan and you don't want to get 10% tax penalty.
Man,
That's
yeah.
costly. It's
And,
costly.
and I might say that really what we've done is we've said, well, let's put in a 401k. It's free money. I get free money. Well, we've just showed that it's not free. Or there's certain times where maybe even your employer said, you know what, we don't need this anymore. We don't need you anymore. Yeah, it's 4 years, but it's not fully vested. So you're gone in 4 years,
Mhm.
Mark. And we moved from a nation of savers to investors, and we're all investors. We all think we are like the best. We're all Warren Buffett, apparently. Everybody quotes him, right? But what happened? We should have been savers. Right?
That's a big one right there. Right there, Brandon. I'm going to slow, because you're saying a lot of awesome stuff right there. What happened in 1974 changed, I think, our country, and it was building up to it. But before the 70s, we really were just not doing the stock market in a broad way. There were specific niche groups of stock investors, but your average grandma, grandpa was not a investor in the stock market. We were forced into it, I think, in many ways, due to getting off the gold standard and printing a ton of money and inflation that pushed people into having to seek a higher rate of return. And they couldn't keep up with the standard of living, so both spouses had to go to work, and then we had to send the kids back to the coal mines. No, that hasn't happened yet. They do Minecraft instead. I'm telling you, those kids, they want to go to the mines. They just think that Minecraft is the place to go. But before long, I'm joking, guys. That's my afternoon joke of the day. So no, the standard of living kept going up. Well, the price of everything kept going up, and we now have dual income, hardly making it. And now, again, we're going to have to start sending our kids back to the mines. But in the meantime, we're having to pull from things like our 401k, stuff that didn't even exist when grandma and grandpa were saving for their future. What were they doing? They were using life insurance. They were using annuities. They were using high yield savings. That was the place people saved. And Brandon, you brought it up. We used to be a nation of savers. Now we're a nation of speculators. And how's that working out for us? The old Dr. Phil question.
Well, and then we're told pay off your house, right? Well, the reason that it was that grew so well was, well, interest rates on a house were at 8%. There was no
Or
credit
15.
card. Yeah, 8 or 15, whatever. It was high, and so of course you're going to pay off your house. But then interest rates changed 2%, 3%, because what happened is we became consumers, right? We were consuming, and what is the market built on? People buying stuff,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So the more we buy, the more it goes up. Well, if we keep buying stuff, it's kind of like what happened in 2020, right? We got a insulin shot of money coming in so we could keep funding the economy to buy more stuff, right?
Love it. Yep. That's
If
right.
somebody's
By
on
insulin-
insulin,
By the way, to put that insulin shot into perspective, the CARES Act
put
out $2.2 trillion of insulin.
Yes.
Whoa.
Network insulin. And the Fed expanded their monetary policy by another $3 trillion. So
Amazing.
we're looking at a $5.2 trillion influx of extra dollars that were literally created out of thin air,
Yep. Love it. Love it.
to ease the issues that we have.
Yeah.
So
I think
we've-
again, it's just live in their means.
So we've I think explained the problem, and we've seen the reality of the last 50 years of 401k madness, and really I think we can see there's a better way when you need access to capital. A bank on yourself designed whole life policy where you have liquid access to uninterrupted compound growth. why would you take any other option? If as just setting the labels aside for a minute, opening our mind just a little bit for a minute and setting aside our preconceived notions and biases. Call my money whatever you want to call it. 401k, whole life, wet sponge. I don't care what you call my money, as long as I have access to it and it grows forever. That sounds all right by me. So let's land the plane with a couple of takeaways and next steps and ways you guys can talk to the folks that are watching today who desperately want to learn more. What is a takeaway? Brandon, I'll pass it to you, and then how can folks find you?
Yeah, my biggest thing for everybody to see is it's all one wallet, right? If somebody's taking it and we're going to say, well, I'll give you more, like that's maybe look at the guy who's saying that, right? But take 100% ownership of your own money and understand the 10-10-10 savings rule.
Good.
Because hardships will happen. And what's the cheapest cost?
Love it. So, and Brandon, how can folks find you?
Go to livecounterflow.com. There's a free little quiz there. You can find out if you're a deckhand, a pirate, overboard, hopefully not, or a captain. Find out which one you are at livecounterflow.com.
Love it. Evan, takeaway, and how can folks find you? I'll piggyback off of what Brandon said and just point out that traditional ways of saving are talked about as if that is what you just do. Everybody just does it because that's what you do. And if you can take away one thing from here to just chew on, is that there's actually other ways that you can save and that you can prepare for retirement. And just chew on that, expand on that, read about it, study it. The best thing you can do is just to ask questions, poke holes in the bank on yourself strategy, all you want to. I've done it. Brandon, Mark have all done it. We've come through the other side, realizing something that, we're trying to share with everybody, and you can do that too. You can absolutely look into this and just think about, like you said, Mark, open your mind for a minute and just consider for, that there is another way, and that maybe, just maybe, the traditional way has some flaws that should be really reconsidered. So that's going to be my biggest takeaway. The easiest way to get in touch with me, go to greathousefs.com, and you can get my email, phone number, and all that there. It's GREATHOUSE, F as in Fox, S as in socks, .com. So, looking forward to hearing all your questions and what you've been figuring out.
Yeah, that's right, Dr. Seuss. I like it. And you can find me and meet me and speak with me and my team at notyouraverageFinancialPodcast.com, or shorten it to NYAFinancialPodcast.com and click on Request a Meeting. Be honored to meet with you. But you'll be in great hands with these awesome dudes who have been working for many years to set the record straight on how people can live counterflow. And where they can live in a great house of financial security. Sorry for the puns, guys. But I'm really thankful that we get to do this, and thanks, guys, for taking this time. I guess the final comment I'll make is just, again, consider your options, and don't feel like you have to be the lemming that follows the crowd off the cliff. If you see everybody else taking hardship withdrawals and 401k loans and that nightmare, maybe it's possible to just sidestep. My daughter, for the first time today at lunch, we were reading some of her homework, and she read the Robert Frost poem. What's it called? Two paths diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and it's made all the difference, right? So it's okay to be the weird one and go a different path. She figured that out today at lunch, and it took her 30 seconds. Maybe you guys can do that too and avoid 30 years of pain. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and thanks for taking the time with us on this live. Put it in the chat, even if the live is over. Tell us what you think. And tell us what you'd like us to talk about at the next live. So if you haven't already, if you've made it to the end of this show, like and subscribe what we're talking about. If this has been helping you think a little bit differently about your money, now's a good chance to let us know. The best way to keep us in your feed is to hit the subscribe and follow buttons and hit like, so we know you like us. We love it when you like us. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.